Jingon! Jingon! Hello and welcome to the New World Review. I'm Grandline Waifu. Do you have a little time to speak about our good show Hunter x Hunter? I can promise spoilers and deliberate, specific, non-mention of particular items and clothing, and all with the guarantee that no one will be under your bed. Like what you hear? Thumbs up or down, depending on your preference, and perhaps subscribe by signing this dotted line that has nothing at all to do with your soul. Ready for those spoilers? Let's go. Episode 38 and 39. Such a brilliant thing to learn from his father. The first thing Gon learns, in fact, that hunters are selfish creatures. It's really interesting that Jing tells him several times that he doesn't want to meet his son. Jing starts out telling Gon he doesn't want to meet him, then gives him clues to meet him. He knows that if Gon became a hunter, it was likely to hunt his father. Jing definitely wants to meet Gon, but only if Gon's good enough to meet his standards, and of course Gon fell right into that trap. The crazy look he gets in his eyes when there's a challenge there was phenomenal and gave us great insight into his plans. Gon gets that look often right before he gets very hurt, but even more interestingly, he's drawn that way when he's afraid. The example that stands out most was his first run-in with Hisoka. As Gon spoke to Kurapika about the situation, he said as much to Kurapika, that there was something exhilarating about the experience, but that he was most certainly afraid of Hisoka in that moment. If it's a similar situation, Gon is knowingly walking into danger, and that's exciting. Speaking of walking into danger, it's one thing for his dad to be perched on top of a mini beast near a volcano, another to be perched on top of a mini beast on top of a dragon near a volcano. I kind of was disappointed at the lack of the mini beast on top of a dragon on top of a larger dragon, or maybe a mini beast on top of a dragon on top of Hisoka. That would be hilarious. Anyway, Jing and Gon are very much cut from the same cloth, and that is somewhat comforting. The idea that it seems as though his dad is playing a big old game of hide and seek the way he and Mito did is odd, but not all that surprising given how this show has gone so far. About Gon's mother, there's so much to be said about the idea that he didn't want to know about his birth mother at all. It was a beautiful gesture and a wonderful experience to see him not question it at all, but then to lose the chance to learn about her at all? As an audience member, I both loved and hated that. I want to know more now about Gon's mother than anything else, and yet I feel content not knowing. This is one of the first times in the series that there is information actively given, taken away, and seemingly erased such that we can't have it. And I'm very here for that. I love secrets. I love being reminded that I know nothing at all about a character. I enjoy not knowing things, and I enjoy wanting to know things. It's been floated that Jing knows who and where his mother is. It means I'm ready to dive into a new arc that has promise of what a future arc could be. There was also a very beautiful note of Gon confirming resolutely that Mito is his mother. Being willing to stop listening is one thing. Reaffirming without what seems to be too much concern that it's not the loss of the information of his mother, but the forensic information they could have learned about is another. What it does mean now, from an audience perspective, is that any time we come across a woman who could theoretically look like Gon, I'm going to wonder if she's his birth mother. So don't be too surprised if I'm just repeatedly saying, is it her? Is it her? What about her? And her? And her? What about her? Her? As an interlude, the idea of a magical boombox is one of my favorites so far, and it raises the issue of items being enchanted in this world. It's a new and interesting use of Nen, and while we've had examples of it before, such as Hisoka's use of his cards and the promise string, there's something about the use of it as applied to technology and the connection of that Nen to someone who put it in place 10 years ago. It suggests that 10 years ago, Jing was a powerful Nen user. Where will he be now? What are we going to see now? How many times will Jing turn up and leave? Jing Gon! Hello, yes, it's me, Tough Nut Dad. And what was the second tape for? Did Jing use the second tape full of Nen to record his son's responses? Did he make a mixtape? Even I, a 90s chick who used to make mixtapes from the radio, does not understand why the second tape was there if not to record a response that Jing could hear simultaneously, or some other kind of magic-y nenness. Speaking of magic-y nenness, since when was Killua a digital forensic scientist? I know he's an assassin, and I get that assassins have to research, but he surprises me sometimes with his quick thinking. We know he's not Gon, but sometimes I want to know more about how intelligent he actually is. It's not too far for him to know about the Joy Station. Joy Station, and it's not too far for him to know about games, especially given Piggy's existence. Piggy, I thought his name was Milky, so he's not a cow anymore, he's a pig. Are we just going to work our way through farmyard animals? What exactly is Horsey doing now, beyond spending his time with big busted friend dolls in front of his thousands of computer screens? Actually, never mind. I don't want to know. So, Greed Island, huh? We only need a couple 100 billion currency to achieve this. And Greed Island, it's such a perfect game for a hunter to be playing. Here are my magical predictions, because this is fun for me. We're bringing the team back together, or at least Kurapika, Gon, and Killua. We're going to try to get hold of the game, but we'll probably struggle because of the nature of an auction. Jing will make an appearance, but Gon won't see him. Maybe he'll see his back as he leaves. Yeah, that's a pretty anime-style thing to do. Farm Boy will have some kind of role in this. I don't think we've seen the last of him, but I feel like despite the brotherly manipulation, he'll still somehow come through in the end, or we'll get the really dark way, and Killua's going to have to kill him and pry the game from his cold, dead piggy fingers. Either way, I think this interlude of beauty with warm, soft colours and the sense of homeness and warmth and kindness was needed, because from here I expect everything's going to get dark and gritty. His final night at home was the last hurrah. Mito knows how Gon feels about her without asking, so she knows that if he can come home, he will. I get the feeling she always had faith in him, but now she has faith in him caring enough about her to come home, something Jing didn't have or give her. Lovey-dovey things aside, let's discuss episode 39. The beginning of episode 39 was a revision session of everything that happened to Kurapika from the last time we saw him. It was a nice reminder, but I felt we got a little bit too much information that we already had. That said, if we were watching when the episode first aired, maybe it would be different, because that would have meant we hadn't seen anything of Kurapika for maybe 10 weeks. And that's very different to the speed I'm watching at, despite it feeling like I'm taking forever to get through this series. I know you. I know where you are. I don't know where you are. I know who you are. You people that want me to watch entire arcs before reviewing. No, I'm going one by one. Very specific. I enjoyed the revision of the Nen aspect, and I really enjoyed seeing the silhouettes. I'm sure I've seen all the people with those skills and their silhouettes, but being able to pick up who was who has given more than enough information to work from when I see them use those abilities. We know that Gon is an enhancer, and we've seen him work using his ability. We haven't really seen Killua transmute, but we have seen Hisoka do it, so we have the connection there. Kurapika conjuring his chains. We'll come back to those chains in a little bit, in fact, because it's wonderful. I'm excited to see how our healer Leorio goes, emitting good vibes or just sonic booms of complaint? Who knows? And our manipulator Illumi we have definitely seen. I want to see more specialist powers though. We've definitely seen another manipulator this episode. That bodyguard, she was interesting. Essentially, we've got her. And I'm somewhat here for it, though I'd like to see more femme characters with some offensive abilities, particularly in terms of Nen use, rather than care and seduction, the two we've seen so far. They're fairly obvious powers to give femininity, but there is always time, and I hope we get more of that. Back to Kurapika. There's a lot new about him. Despite the amount of time we spent recapping before we got to new information, the new information we got about him was juicy, and the new rage-filled heavy metal chords we saw of him were amazing. This previously carefully thought out, almost soft character is now possibly the most hardcore character in the series. His chain looks so thin with the little ball on the end that in the last moment of the episode I thought more of a garrote. Thin enough to look harmless but sharp enough to cause some serious damage. There was something very interesting about his teacher's awareness that to become a good conjurer he would need focus, imagination and training. Two of those Kurapika has shown us already. He's very capable of focus. One might argue he's overly focused on his goals, and training is definitely not something he's afraid of, but imagination? I'm excited to see what becomes of that, because Kurapika's great at coming up with plans, but they seem at first glance to be very practical. That practicality rather than imagination could be his downfall. Either way, he has a pretty new skirt for the new arc, and I can't wait to see him fight. As a sidebar, I just want it known that I'm aware that as an enhancer, Gon is inherently more dangerous than the others, but I haven't decided how I feel about that as yet. If it ever came down to a fight between Gon and Kurapika, we could reasonably assume Gon would win, but we would have assumed that anyway. It'll be interesting if or when it turns out that Jing was the one who killed the Kurta. That's the kind of dark I would expect from this series, so who knows? As a side note, the sideburns of one of the interviewees looked like the eyebrows of the dude bra in One Piece who looks like the other dude bra without the eyebrows. Liam knows who I'm talking about. This guy. Anyway, the dude here looks very much like he'll be mincemeat. I mean, I don't know that he can protect himself. He definitely looked very afraid. I'm very excited about the idea that each of these people had their own musical introduction. Who is our new empathetic rat-faced friend with the flute intro? I don't know if I like him or not. Not yet anyway. Have I already said how much I love the music of this episode? I loved the music of this episode. Every one of our new characters had their own introduction that took us into new genres. We had Ratface with a sharp flute. We had the intense 90s Street Fighter feel with heavy rock influences. We had the flute that carried over to the bodyguard babe, her terrified employer, followed by the sitcom sardonic style in which he seemed to get in someone else's car and drive away. And we had Kurapika and all the discordant piano that sounds so painfully good with the rage and determination he's feeling. Kurapika is finally at the point where he can narratively start to achieve his goals, and we know that he's going to do morally questionable things to achieve them. The music tells us that. Obviously, morally questionable things like killing and maiming, sure, but I mean morally questionable such as potentially doing to others what was done to his people in order to reap vengeance on them. There was a moment at the end of the episode where I wondered whether the boss was going to suggest that everyone in the room already had what they needed. As soon as we saw those Kurta eyes, I was like, ooh, and ooh. I do know for sure that the person who saw his eyes is going to be judging how hard it is to attain those eyes by how well Kurapika fights. I'm excited to see what Kurapika has learned and to see how he goes fighting without his wooden swords the way he has to now. I'm so very excited, in fact, that I need to stop talking about this episode, so that's all from me. If you enjoyed this episode, check out this one, and check out the Discord, and maybe put your finger on your chin and say, I don't guard ugly men, but I'm a babe. It's surprisingly self-affirming. Liam can vouch for it. Have a great day.